Hi everyone, it's been a while. If you notice that I haven't uploaded anything for the past few months, there is a reason for that. Earlier this year, I went through a major scoliosis surgery, and most of my time since then has been spent recovering. I'm still recovering, but I'm finally feeling well enough to start creating videos again. And since this is my first video back, I thought it would be a good opportunity to tell you a little more about myself. If you are new here, my name is Mahsa. I'm 33 years old, live in Toronto, Canada, and my main profession is product design. Although depending on the day, I also become a graphic designer, content creator, video editor, and about 10 other things. But there is one thing that has been part of my life much longer than design. I've been living with scoliosis for almost 20 years. And because June is a scoliosis awareness month, I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about it. Not just as a patient, but through the lens of a UX designer. Because this wasn't just another design exercise. It was connected to something I have lived with for most of my life. Before we get into the design side of things, let me quickly explain what scoliosis is. Scoliosis is a condition where the spine curves sideways instead of remaining straight. It can show up in different ways. Some people are born with it, while others discover it later in life. In many cases, especially adolescent idiopathic scoliosis, it becomes noticeable during the teenage years. Depending on the severity, treatment can include observation, bracing, physical therapy, or surgery. And in many cases, including mine, the exact cause is unknown. I was diagnosed when I was around 13 years old. At first, my mom noticed that my body wasn't symmetrical. One side of my back looked different from the other. Then, during school screening, they noticed something wasn't right. After seeing a specialist and getting x-rays, I received the diagnosis. Honestly, I was terrified. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand why it happened. I thought maybe I had done something wrong. And because this was more than 20 years ago, there was no Reddit, no YouTube, no social media, no online communities where I could find people going through the same thing. I genuinely felt alone. Looking back, I don't think the hardest part was the curve itself. It was everything that came with it emotionally. The fear, the uncertainty, the feeling of being different, the feeling that something was wrong with me, the feeling that my future had somehow changed overnight. I spent years wearing a brace during some of the most sensitive years of my life. And what I remember most isn't the brace itself. It's the fact that nobody really talked about what it felt like emotionally. Nobody explained that this wasn't my fault. Nobody explained that having a scoliosis didn't make me less valuable. Nobody explained that I was still worthy of love, friendship, respect, and a normal life. And honestly, I don't remember many people acknowledging how hard it was. Fast forward to today, and things are very different. If a teenager gets diagnosed with a scoliosis today, they have access to more information than I could have imagined back then. They can search Google, watch YouTube videos, join Reddit communities, read recovery stories, talk to people from all over the world, learn about treatment options, and that's amazing. So naturally, I started asking myself, if all of these resources already exist, is there anything left for a UX designer to contribute? At first, I assumed that most of the problems I experienced had been already solved, but then I started thinking about my own experience leading up to surgery. Before my surgery, I spent months researching. I read countless Reddit posts, I watched videos from people who had already gone through surgery, I searched for recovery stories, I looked at outcomes, I tried to understand what life would like on the other side. I used ChatGPT extensively to ask questions about scoliosis surgery, recovery timelines, complication rates, success rates, and patient experiences. In many ways, I had access to more information than ever before. But despite all of that information, there were still moments when I felt alone. One of my biggest concerns before surgery was choosing the right surgeon. And because of how the healthcare system works in Canada, patients often have limited control over that process. There are only a small number of surgeons who specialize in adult scoliosis surgery. Many have long wait times. Some don't accept referrals, and unlike some healthcare systems, patients don't always have complete freedom to choose among many different options. This surgery was one of the biggest decisions of my life. Naturally, I wanted reassurance. I wanted to hear from someone who had already gone through it. Someone with a similar curve, someone around my age, someone who had worked with the same surgeon, someone whose situation looked like mine. But I couldn't find that person. Not because they didn't exist, but because I didn't know they existed. And that's when I started wondering, maybe the challenge isn't getting answers. Maybe it's finding people whose experiences actually feel relevant to yours. Reddit is incredibly useful when you know what you are looking for. Forums are great when somebody has already posted about the exact topic you need. But there are many people whose experiences remain invisible. You don't know they are there. You don't know they might have answers to your questions. You don't know they might be going through almost exactly the same journey. And that made me wonder, could there be a better way to help people discover others with similar experiences? But then another question popped into my head. Maybe not everyone wants to be discovered. And honestly, that's completely okay. Some people prefer to stay anonymous. Some people don't want to talk about their condition. Some people just want information without participating in a community. And that's valid too. So maybe the goal shouldn't be helping everyone get discovered. Maybe the goal is helping people who want to communicate parts of their journey more easily. Not through long posts, not through medical reports, but through something visual, something simple, something that tells part of their story at a glance. Around that time, I was studying French on Duolingo, and for some reason, I started paying more attention to the avatar system than the language lessons. What I found interesting wasn't that Duolingo lets you build the perfect version of yourself. It doesn't. The avatars are actually pretty simple. They are cartoonish, minimal, and everyone still kind of looks like they are from the same world. But somehow, with just a few choices, people still manage to feel connected to their avatar. And that's when a question popped into my head. What if something similar could exist in scoliosis communities? Many people with scoliosis aren't comfortable sharing photos of themselves. Some don't want their condition attached to their identity. Some aren't comfortable posting pictures online, and some simply value their privacy. So I started wondering, could an avatar communicate parts of a person's scoliosis journey? Not their name, not their face, not their private information, just part of their experience. Maybe whether they wear a brace, maybe whether they had surgery, maybe where they are in their recovery journey, maybe other details they are comfortable sharing. Not to replace communities, not to replace conversation, but maybe to make it a little easier for people to recognize experiences similar to their own. At this point, I wasn't even sure it was a good idea. And honestly, I'm still not sure. But I have a problem. Ideas don't leave me alone. Once they got into my head, they stay there until I build something. So instead of trying to build a startup or a full product, I decided to create a simple concept prototype, just enough to explore the idea visually. I started with a rough sketch on paper. Then I used AI tools to help me generate some of the assets and speed up the process. And finally, I brought everything into Figma and started building the version I actually had in mind. I still don't know whether this idea solves an important problem. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I think that's okay because good design doesn't start with certainty. It starts with curiosity. And sometimes the most interesting projects begin with a personal experience, a simple question, and the willingness to explore where the question might lead. If you've ever dealt with scoliosis, whether as a patient, a family member, or a healthcare professional, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you are a designer, I'd love to know, do you think there's anything you can contribute here? Thanks for watching and I see you in the next video.